Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Austin Petersen here, former presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party. Thank you very much for tuning into this audio version of my live streams. And today is going to be a topic that I think will probably ignite a lot of contention, specifically because of the subject matter that we're going to be discussing today, and that is specifically the vice presidential candidate on the Libertarian Party, Governor Bill Weld. For those of you who don't know, Governor Bill Weld was the former governor of Massachusetts, who is now running as a libertarian opposite of Gary Johnson on the ticket. And there have been quite a few controversies surrounding Bill Weld today. And I thought that we should address some of these things, specifically because there are a lot of misgivings about Bill Weld. Of course, most people who know me know that I did not specifically endorse Governor Bill Weld for vice president. In fact, notably, there was a big contentious dust-up at the convention because I specifically did not endorse Governor Bill Weld. But now that I've had some time to reflect and to spend some time getting to know the governor and getting to know a little bit more about his history as governor of Massachusetts, I thought that we should have a critical examination 30 days out before the election, the November elections. And I wanted to talk about Governor Bill Weld specifically because when we did some research into his past, I found quite a few things to support in Governor Bill Weld. Right now, we should up front we should discuss the controversy, and I'm going to go ahead and share this live stream out on Facebook and Twitter right now, so more people will come and join the discussion. Here they are. The top 5 most libertarian positions of Governor Bill Weld. Live now. So I thought you all would like to join me for this topic. I've been doing these live streams on YouTube rather than on Facebook. I've been streaming them later on Facebook, so if you're listening to this later on Facebook, these live streams are happening on live on YouTube, and they're being replayed on Facebook. So if you guys on Facebook now, just know that I've been doing these live over on YouTube simply because YouTube allows me to monetize the show versus Facebook, where I don't get anything for it. So it's better for me to go over on YouTube. So if you're not a follower of my YouTube page, it's youtube.com/AuggieP, AUGGYP. So if you guys would just subscribe over there, I would be very grateful for you guys to do that. That'll help me to make more podcasts, because if I can monetize the podcasts through YouTube, then it's much easier for me to continue to produce these things. So yeah, so like I said, do me a favor, guys, and subscribe on YouTube, youtube.com/AuggieP, AUGGYP. All right, so let's talk about the show. The big controversy is the story that came out today in the Boston Globe, and the title of it is called "VP Hopeful Weld is More Interested in Attacking Trump." This is by Michael Levinson and Frank Phillips. And I thought that there were some inaccuracies in the headline. Specifically, I had to do some research on it because as I've started to warm to Bill Weld, there have been a lot of criticisms of me, which specifically because I had taken Ron Paul to task for his promotion, not endorsement, but his promotion of the Green Party candidate Jill Stein. So I think there's a little bit of hypocrisy out there with people who have said, "Oh, well, he's just saying progressives should vote for her." But I think that the people who are trying to defend Ron Paul in such a way are simply being sycophantic. Because the truth is that there are no libertarians alive that if they said publicly on national television that progressives should vote for someone like Jill Stein, that they wouldn't be flayed alive. So I think that we need a little bit more intellectual honesty. And you know how I am. I like to play devil's advocate. So if Ron Paul can promote Jill Stein, a progressive, then I think there shouldn't be a problem with me promoting Bill Weld, who is, if anything, libertarian light. But there are a lot of nice things to say about Bill Weld, and so I'm going to do that right now. Let me read this article to you I want to read to this article the controversy in the article, and we can discuss the ins and outs of that article, and then I'll go ahead and get to what I think are the 5 most libertarian positions of Bill Weld. All right, so this is from the Boston Globe, and the article, again, is titled "VP Hopeful Weld is More Interested in Attacking Trump." The Libertarian Vice Presidential candidate Bill Weld said Tuesday he plans to focus exclusively on blasting Donald Trump over the next 5 weeks, a strategic pivot aimed at denying Trump the White House and giving himself a key role in helping to rebuild the GOP. Weld's comments in a Globe interview mark a major shift in his mission since he pledged at Libertarian Convention that he would remain a libertarian for life and would do all he could to help elect his running mate, Gary Johnson, the former governor of Mexico. Now, keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that the leftists who write these kinds of magazines are terrified about what Governor Gary Johnson and Bill Weld could do to Hillary Clinton because they're polling so high in so many key states. Anyways, back to the article. But things have changed. Johnson has committed several high-profile gaffes in recent weeks that reveal apparent weak spots in his foreign policy knowledge. Meanwhile, Trump had seemed to be surging back into contention after he fell well behind in the polls in early August. While Weld still insisted he supports Johnson, he said he's now primarily interested in blocking Trump from winning the presidency and then potentially working with longtime Republican leaders such as Mitt Romney and Haley Barbour to create a new path for the party after the election. Quote, "Maybe somebody is going to come up with a new playbook, and I don't know who it's going to be, but it would be fun to participate," Weld said in a telephone interview from Atlanta, where he was holding a fundraiser and rally planned to watch and tweet about Tuesday night's VP debate, featuring his major party rivals, Democrat Tim Kaine and Republican Mike Pence, which if you're listening on YouTube right now, you all know that I did a live stream commentary on that, so don't forget to check that out as well. Weld, a former Republican governor of Massachusetts, said he is focusing on Trump because while he disagrees with Hillary Clinton on fiscal and military issues, Trump's agenda is so objectionable, it's in a class by itself. Quote, "I think Mr. Trump's foreign policy proposals are, including nuclear proliferation, tariffs, and free trade, would be so hurtful domestically and in the world that he has my full attention," Weld said. Hard to disagree as a libertarian with that quote by Bill Weld. Weld insisted he was not abandoning Johnson, although he signaled that bolting from the LP might be a possibility in the future. "I'm certainly not going to drop them this year," Weld said. Now, that is the kind of thing that sounds like a very damning statement, of course, if you think that, if you want Bill Weld to stay in the LP. The only problem is the people that would criticize him from that are the people who have been trying to run Bill Weld out on a rail the entire time they've been in the party. So it is a little bit of a difficult situation to be in because if you think about it, do you want Bill Weld to stay in the Libertarian Party? If so, then mistreating him and not giving him credit where it's due, I think, is unfair. If we want more good talent, people with experience running as libertarians, then we have to ask ourselves, do we want to chase people off like Bill Weld? Well, if he's saying things like this, I'm certainly not going to drop them this year. That's going to make a lot of Libertarian Party apparatchiks very upset. They're going to look at this and say, oh, well, this is an example that he's not loyal to us. But why would he be loyal to us if we're not loyal to him, is my question. Weld's comments seem sure to reignite suspicions among libertarians who have questioned his loyalty to the party and have accused him of using the ticket for his own political aims. Well, who doesn't use the ticket for their own political aims? But Weld's decision to chart his own course appears to reflect the feeling among his aides, who have privately expressed dismay at Johnson's flubs on TV, such as when Johnson could not come up with the name of a favorite foreign leader, and when he said, "What is Aleppo?" when asked about the besieged Syrian city. Those missteps, in sharp contrast to Weld's smoother command of foreign affairs, have created some tensions on the ticket. Adding to the conflict are the accolades Weld has received from national political commentators who have dubbed him the more substantial and serious candidate, while ridiculing Johnson as a lightweight. Quote, "Unfortunately, if the ticket was flipped, they might have more success," said Bob Durand, a Weld ally and former Democratic state senator who donated $1,000 to the Libertarian ticket. At one point, Weld strategists researched Libertarian Party rules to see if it were possible for him to take over the top of the ticket. The rules state the VP nominee automatically assumes the presidential spot if there is a vacancy, but Johnson, to the suggestion, flatly rejected the idea. Weld insisted he and Johnson remain, quote, "happy warriors," and said Johnson is fully supportive of his anti-Trump campaign. I mean, who's not supportive of an anti-Trump campaign? Quote, "I've had it in mind all along trying to get the Donald into third place, and with some tugging and hauling, we might get there," Weld said. Weld has been much more critical of Trump than Clinton, whom he has known since the 1970s, when they were young lawyers working for the House committee that investigated Richard Nixon. Just last week, for example, Weld irked Johnson supporters when he said on MSNBC that he's, quote, "not sure if anybody's more qualified than Hillary Clinton to be president of the United States." A gaffe for sure. Weld, meanwhile, has denounced Trump as a huckster with a screw loose and said his plan to deport 11 million illegal immigrants would remind me of Anne Frank hiding in the attic. Well, that's a beautiful comment, and I completely agree with Weld. Weld's new plan calls for him to focus his fire on Trump in a handful of red states, as well as in at least one swing state, New Hampshire, where the Libertarians are running strong. Nationally, the ticket is drawing about 7% support. Polls show that Johnson and Weld, who are initially thought to appeal to mostly anti-Trump Republicans, may be doing more damage to Clinton by siphoning away young voters. Quote, "That's obviously a concern," said Mark Robinson, Weld's friend, former chief of staff and colleague at the Boston law firm Mintz Levin. He certainly doesn't want to be in that position where Trump could win and people would be blaming him. Now remember, that's not Weld's comment. That's Mark Robinson. Robinson said it would make sense for Weld to step up his criticism of Trump, particularly after Weld failed to clear the 15% polling margin needed to qualify for the debates. He's got to push his message out with more urgency and even more bellicosity than he has before, Robinson said. There's no shortage of material to attack Donald Trump. So there are a lot of half-truths, mistruths, and a lot of speculation from this article. And it's important, guys, for us to be as objective when we examine Bill Weld, as objective as we are when we examine Gary Johnson or myself or any other candidate who claims to represent libertarian values. That's perfectly fine. What we don't want to do is to go out and tell people to vote for progressives like Jill Stein, for example. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Of course, because anyone who claims that a progressive is good on foreign policy is either lying or pushing a mistruth. Of course, think about that, because anyone who understands progressive history understands that while a progressive may claim to be anti-war, that anyone who claims for a position of total state power knows that eventually there will be a loss of liberty at home and abroad. But away from Jill Stein, let's talk a little bit about Bill Weld's record, because Josh Guckert at the Libertarian Republic has written a really fantastic article that I'm going to share with you guys right now. This is the 5 most hardcore libertarian positions of Bill Weld. Number 1, gay rights. Weld has long been on the forefront of the battle for gay rights. As governor of Massachusetts, he appointed Margaret Marshall to the position of Chief Justice to the Massachusetts Supreme Court. In 2003, she became the first U.S. judge to find that same-sex couples could not be denied the right to marry. Weld's common refrain is that government should stay out of your pocketbook and out of your bedroom. While this sentiment is now somewhat commonplace in politics, this was not nearly as popular when Weld was active in politics in the 1990s. In fact, he was booed loudly at the 1992 Republican convention when he made that statement. In 2013, he filed an amicus curiae brief with the United States Supreme Court, urging the judges to recognize marriage equality. Number 2, taxes and spending. In the economic sphere, there is not much room to complain about Weld. In 3 gradings of his fiscal policies as governor by the Cato Institute, he earned 1 A and 2 B grades. During his gubernatorial reign, he cut taxes 9 times and rolled back $2 billion in tax increases, which had been instituted by his predecessors. He even once gave a speech in which he stated that, "I think coercive taxation is theft and government has a moral duty to keep it to a minimum." When describing Weld in 2005, the American Spectator made it clear that he was not simply a moderate Republican, as that would suggest he took a more centrist stance on fiscal policy. James Antle III continued, "Bill Weld, on the other hand, truly mixes fiscal conservatism with social liberalism. As governor of Massachusetts, he cut taxes 16 times, balanced the budget annually, pursued privatization, vetoed minimum wage increases, and even rejected higher levies on cigarettes to pay for health care for children." Let's repeat that last one. He vetoed a cigarette tax that would have paid for children's health care in Massachusetts. Number 3, war on drugs. Weld has long favored harm reduction and rehabilitation over punishment and prohibition. When he was nominated in 1997 to serve as ambassador to Mexico, Senator Jesse Helms issued a press release stating that Weld was, quote, soft on drugs. He had already at that point come out in favor of medical marijuana and, quote, needle exchange programs to minimize the negative ancillary effects of intravenous heroin use. Weld has come even further on his position on controlled substances in the past few years, as he has indicated his support for a Massachusetts initiative which would legalize recreational marijuana in the Commonwealth. Weld admitted that he had evolved on this topic since his time as a prosecutor in the Justice Department, and stated that, concerning other drugs, legalization is at least worth a discussion. He continued on to say, "There's something to the idea by decriminalizing something you take it out of the shadows, and then the incentives are not there for the bad guys to do massive criminal sales." Well, that sounds like a very good evolution to me. Number 4, immigration. In 2013, Weld advocated for an overhaul of the American immigration system, stating that the economic arguments to justify as much are overwhelming. He specifically proposed an increase in visas to protect foreign students from being forced to leave upon graduation. He also pointed that the current system is broken in that it creates de facto legalization without any of the benefits of legalization. Weld stated that this leads to undocumented immigrants living in the shadows, paranoid that they may be noticed and reported. Most notably, when asked about Donald Trump's plan to find and deport 11 million immigrants, he did not mince words. Said Weld, "I can hear the glass crunching on Kristallnacht in the ghettos of Warsaw and Vienna when I hear that." Wow, that's powerful. Number 5, finally, corruption and government reform. During his 1991 inaugural address, Weld put the Massachusetts political establishment on notice that he was about to sweep the old order away, said Jeff Jacoby of the City Journal. Weld made a career of exposing corruption and returning accountability to government, all while returning power to the individual. Serving as a federal prosecutor for 7 years, Weld won convictions in 110 out of 111 public corruption cases brought by his office. In March of 1988, Weld resigned from the Justice Department in protest of improper conduct by Attorney General Edwin Meese. Meese would resign shortly after Weld testified in front of Congress about his misconduct. As governor, he set his sights upon reinventing the way state government functions, as well as dismantling bureaucracies 50 years out of date, sluggish, and centralized, in which hierarchies rule and orders are issued from the top of the power pyramid. So what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Is there anything that you find of note from Bill Weld? Is this really someone that we really need to set our sights on and aim? Listen, we have 30 days right now to push this ticket as far as we can. And yes, he absolutely deserves criticism whenever he makes bad statements about guns or AR-15s. I don't agree with him on those positions. But think about this. The rumors are now that Bill Weld might actually run for Senate against Elizabeth Warren. Now, let me just ask you a question. If Bill Weld were to run against Elizabeth Warren, no matter what party he ran as, let's say he ran as a Green Party candidate, would you support him? If he were running against Elizabeth Warren, absolutely you would support him over Elizabeth Warren. I mean, this is the woman who has she was the one that made it so that Obama said that you didn't build that. That's where Obama got his comments from. Elizabeth Warren is the very definition of a socialist in the modern world. Bill Weld running against Elizabeth Warren, I think, would be a good thing for the cause of limited government. He's certainly much more libertarian than Elizabeth Warren, who I'm having trouble finding any libertarian positions on. But the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, is that we have to have more critical analysis and reflection and stop taking such knee-jerk responses whenever we are faced with these kinds of opportunities. And I do think that the Gary Johnson-Bill Weld ticket in 2016 is an opportunity. But here's the thing. If everybody's worried that Bill Weld is going to leave the Libertarian Party, then why would we mistreat him and treat him so horribly? If we want Bill Weld to remain a libertarian and to run against Elizabeth Warren as a libertarian, then we're going to need to find ways to get him to stick around and to stay. So that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're always finding ourselves with these opportunities and we chase out people who might be our allies. So I'm going to rescind my non-endorsement of Bill Weld, and I don't feel any compunctions in doing so, despite some of the disagreements that I have with him on policy. Because I do see Governor Bill Weld as being a much better alternative than Tim Kaine or Mike Pence. So I will continue to push the Johnson and Weld ticket, and I think that it's important for us to be objective. And I really don't give a damn what any other person's opinions are of me. I have my principles, and my principles aren't always in alignment with Bill Weld. But you know what? I don't agree with Ron Paul on 100% of everything. Ron Paul has said a lot of stupid things about border walls and immigration. Ron Paul's got a lot of policy problems that libertarians should look at. Even the messiah of libertarianism has got some positions that are not libertarian. Even Murray Rothbard took positions that are not libertarian. So ladies and gentlemen, are we going to be objective, or are we going to live in a cult of personality forever? Are we going to always look to the past and live on nostalgia, or are we going to build the libertarian movement in the future? If you think that you can do better than Bill Weld, I would encourage you to get out there as a libertarian and run for office, and damn it, put your principles into practice. I put my money where my mouth is, and I'm being as objective as I can and saying what I feel. And I'm not trying to play politics here, because I don't get a damn thing out of supporting Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. As a matter of fact, I think it probably hurts me going forward. But the truth is that I'm not here trying to run for office. I'm trying to spread the ideas of liberty, and also trying to be as objective and critical as I can be. Well, what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think that are you going to pull it for Gary Johnson or Bill Weld? Are you guys going to go to the ballot box? Let me know what you guys think about these podcasts. I love your feedback from this. Do me a favor and share this on your timelines. And if you're listening to this on Facebook later, do me a favor, subscribe to my YouTube page, youtube.com/AuggieP, AuggieP. Augie P, that's me. Thanks a lot, ladies and gentlemen. You have a fantastic day.